Hello everybody! Today we're going to be talking about leagues. I didn't get to play Leagues 1 or 2, but I played 3 and loved it, and I'm gonna be so ready for Leagues 4, and hopefully this video will help you do the same. In today's video, we're going to rank the 8 different areas, from worst to best. Gonna go over a little bit of my plans at the end, and some things you should probably consider as far as combos go for different areas. But before we start getting into the different areas, we should probably talk about what we start with, Karamja and Misselin. Of course we're gonna start in Lumbridge. It wouldn't feel like RuneScape if we didn't. I'm looking at you, RuneScape 3. But since we do have Lumbridge unlocked, you should try to get your fairy rings ASAP if they don't get auto-unlocked in some way. We're also going to have the Abyssal area unlocked to us because of the fairy rings, so you should actually be able to get a whip with enough Slayer grinding effort, and that's already unlocked to you without even getting a new region. Don't forget about Fossil Island in the exact same area of Misselin. You need to drop in and get some birdhouse runs started immediately. You'll never have to train Hunter as long as you start your birdhouse runs early. And you've always got the AFK crabs for a little bit of downtime. Also, something that not a lot of people might realize is you can get the rune crossbow from Fossil Island if you kill the deranged archaeologist enough. And all the other good stuff that's in Misselin is going to be the Edgeville Bank, especially if you change your teleport location to Edgeville. That's the fastest way you can get to a bank from a teleport. The Stronghold of Security, everyone is going to be rushing that the second they get into the game for their good 10k. And there's also 39 quests to start in Misselin and Karamja. So there's a lot more to do just at the beginning than you might think. And that's just most of the stuff that's in Misselin. You gotta talk about Karamja, because you've got a player-owned house portal in Karamja. You can just walk straight into your house, and you don't even need 40 magic to teleport there. Don't forget about your Karambawanji for all of the food for the rest of the game. You know you're gonna need to combo eat, especially in leagues when you're gonna be pushing the boundaries of what you're able to do. You gotta pick up your Fire Cape, Inferno Cape, Onyxes to buy from the Tazars for jewelry upgrades, as well as the Red Shield. And I'm just gonna call it the Red Shield because it's actually called Tiztoxketzil, and that's ridiculous. And I want to say all this because so many people, when they think about leagues, are like, I'm going to unlock this, I'm going to unlock that, and it's going to be awesome. And they don't even think about the area that they're already in. This should try to help you plan out your route before you pick your first area. And let's talk about the different areas that you can pick from worst to best, in my opinion. And the worst one is gonna be the wilderness. I know this might seem controversial because it's been updated so many times since our last league, but those updates really aren't helping very much. I'm gonna try and go through all of the notable things that I might think of in a region, but if you guys have any more notable things, please leave them down in the comments. And the first thing you might think of for the wilderness is the new wildy weapons. All of the upgrades like the Vigor's Chain Mace or even the Void Waker, those weapons are really good, and they'd be broken with the League's relics. Unfortunately though, they're not necessarily best in slot in most areas. That means the things that are best in slot are going to be a little bit more broken. There is something that is best in slot though, and that's going to be the Mage Arena 2 Cape. A massive advantage you'll have against other people. And Wildy Slayer, an entire area dedicated to Slayer, and your points will be through the roof. I'm not sure how beneficial Slayer points are going to be in leagues, but you'll be able to exploit that to its full extent. There's also the Fountain of Rune. I'm sure if you and another account started splashing on each other, you'd have 99 in no time. And everyone always loves the Prayer Altar. There's the Prayer Altar in the wilderness to give you a 50% chance to not use your bones. It may not be the most beneficial thing with our experience rates doubled, tripled, 5 times, 20 times, whatever they may be. But the black chins are absolutely something that you're going to have an advantage of over other people. You're not going to be able to get black chins anywhere but here. And if LMS is hopping, you might even have a pretty good moneymaker with rune arrows and high alchemy. But essentially that's it. It might be a solid first pick, but that's all I can really give it. It has no endgame gear except for Corp for a shield, which is pretty unlikely. But hey, maybe leagues will take care of that with the improved drop rates. So the wilderness is going to be my worst area to pick, followed up by Reminic. Oh, I know it. Reminic is a treasured area because of Vorkath, but Vorkath may not necessarily be that useful. You could get the Dragon Axe from the Dagonoth Kings, and you could also get the rings. A lot of that is going to be a benefit above other people, especially if you find a way to get the best in slot rings from the Desert Treasure 2 bosses. There's also the Lunar Spellbook. It's more of a utility spellbook, so that just feels like a safe pick, along with the fact that your player-owned house won't necessarily be able to be upgraded all the way unless you pick Reminic. Things like the Gilded Altar and your Spellbook Altar, along with the Ornate Pool, will all need things that can only be bought in Keldagrim, and I think you might even need something from Tronwyn to open up your Ornate Pool. You do have Miscellaneous, so you'll have a passive way to gather any supplies that you might be lacking from your area. I'm not 100% sure on this, but Muspa and Duke might even be in your area, so notable drops from them as well. But as far as it goes, that's all the notable things that I can think of for Reminic. It depends on a lot of other regions to make it a good region, and I think that makes it a bad region. And that's why it's number 2 on our list. Number 3, I know this one is going to be super controversial, but it's Tronwyn. This to me is going to be our third worst choice, because there's really not much that you can do in Tronwyn. Sure, you've got the Gauntlet, you've got Zolcano, you've got Zulrah, but that really just covers one small niche, your ranged endgame gear. And if you were gonna get something like the Bofa from the Gauntlet, you might feel bad to get the T-Bow from Karend. Picking both might just lead to that feeling of a wasted choice later down the line. And I believe the T-Bow is better than the Bofa in most occasions. I mentioned Zulrah, and you would probably think that, ooh, Blowpipe is gonna be so OP, but they have nerfed it since the last league, so it's not gonna be as OP as you might think. Also, for the Blowpipe, fletching darts is required for the tourist trap in the desert. So you're gonna have to find different kinds of drops or other kinds of relics to make your darts if you don't also pick the desert, making both of those ranged weapons almost have a that's good but thing about them. And those two things are the only real notable things about this area, which is why it's the third worst area in my opinion. Sure, you will have Zolcano for supplies and red chins too, but that just does not make up for the glaring issues over here. Moving on into kandarin. And this is gonna be a really middle of the road type of pick. It might even be a little bit better of a pick if you pick it first. There's a lot of mid-game content here. You've got Zenites, the Waterfall Quest, the Elemental Workshop if you were gonna go kill wyverns for their bones or other things. We've got the Smoke Dungeon, you know you've gotta get your occult necklace. And the Kraken is in our area too, ready to hand over the trident. And a few more mid-game things that you might be thinking of, like Piety, a cannon, a dragon scimitar, maniacal monkeys to exploit relic drops because you're just gonna be killing so gosh darn many things so fast. And the big one here, everybody, is spirit trees are unlocked from kandarin. Probably won't get spirit trees unless they're auto-unlocked by some quest or relic. So if you have spirit trees in mind for your plans, make sure you pick up kandarin. Two more notable things that you might be thinking of, the Mystic Robes and Rune Shop, so you won't have to worry about supplies very often, and you can just buy some decent mage gear, along with the Arania Rune Crafting Altar. Kandarin seems like a really safe pick for anyone that wants to cover all their bases, and now we're just over half with our number 5 pick, the 4th best pick that you can pick in my opinion, and that's going to be Asgarnia. It's a good choice for several different bosses. Many people are instantly going to jump to the Guild War bosses, and there's a lot of mid to almost late game gear hanging out in there, and it's ripe for the taking. You're also going to have Motherlode Mine to just knock the mining grind out in an instant. along with the defenders. You're going to need to pick Asgarnia for a dragon defender. And should you pick Mauritania to try to upgrade that bad boy, it's gonna feel really bad when you get the Reminic defender hilt and you don't have a defender to put it on. Some more notable things like Cerberus for any of the boots that would be considered endgame gear, and you even unlock Dorgish Khan with Asgarnia too. There's not a lot that you can do in there, but there's a few niche things. And then one more thing you're gonna need to consider from Asgarnia, Turiel skipping. Slayer will be locked to whatever area you're in, and if whatever area you're in isn't the most conducive to Slayer, Asgarnia might be able to help you here. Also, if you're one of those people who think to themselves, this time I'm gonna max, then if you want that max cape, you better buy Asgarnia, because that's where you're gonna be picking up the max cape. And then we're going into the top 3, everybody. Mortania is actually gonna be the 3rd best choice in my opinion. We've got the Slayer helm unlocked to make all of our Slayer tasks so much easier. A salve amulet that you're able to earn for any of our undead foes, which happen to be a lot in RuneScape. Sepulcher will take care of your agility woes, and then Temple Trekking and Shades of Morton have got you covered for most supplies. I do just want to say exactly how understated Shades of Morton would be. You can get your amulets of defense and mithril bars, as well as up to steel weaponry from the bronze keys. If you've got your steel keys, you can get all the way up to adamant weaponry and some nature runes with adamant bars and an amulet of strength. With the black keys, you've got a fair chance of getting all of the elemental staves, up to mithril armor, death runes, and amulets of magic. With the silver keys, you've got rune weaponry and rune armor, amulets of power, and amulets of the dam, essentially a replacement for amulets of glory, along with blood runes added to the list. When you finally make it into the gold keys, you can get some dragon weaponry, aside from the scimitar, full rune armor, soul runes, and dragon stones. And we're just talking about training fire making here. This makes it great, even at the very start if you pick Mortania. Don't forget about the blood altar, the true blood altar, to be crafting blood runes with our Day Alt Essence from the Day Alt Essence mine. You won't necessarily be able to get the Ava's accumulator without Mortania and Asgarnia, so keep that in mind. And then the big stuff here. You've got barrows to fill in the blanks for any endgame gear that you don't have, Vires for blood shards for your blood fury, and that leads us to the Nightmare and Theater of Blood. These two things are going to take your melee gear through the roof with the scythe, and it's probably about time you learn raids too, isn't it? After that, the second best choice this league's is going to be the desert. I know, it was one of the worst choices last leagues, but this time, it's really moved into the MVP slot. You've got Temperos and Giant's Foundry to take care of those early game needs for supplies. You might even be able to play Guardians of the Rift for rune crafting, but last recall may make this kind of redundant because you can just craft as many runes as you want as long as you've been to that altar once. The Mage Training Arena is really going to help you out for most of the mage gear, especially if you try to upgrade the Kodai if you pick Karen. And the Sorceress's Garden is another really great early game Herblore and Potion Saver. Don't forget about KQ for the Dragon Pickaxe and Pyramid Plunder for your Scepter. You also gotta unlock that ancient spell book before we finally head to the Tombs of Amasket. In Tombs of Amasket, you can pick up Missouri to really build out the range setup, and the Fang is gonna help so much. The only thing that could make this area better is if the Desert Treasure 2 bosses were actually in the desert, but we're just nitpicking here. And then last but not least, our MVP area this league's is absolutely got to be Karend. You've got Bloods and Soul Rune crafting. Those are really important, especially if you pick up the Shadow from TOA. Anglerfish to actually be able to boost past your 99 limits. Tithe Farm to take care of your farming needs. One of the things you may not want to do On a temporary game mode is Farm Runs, and Tithe Farm has got your back. Don't forget to pick up your Dragon War hammer from Lizardman Shamans while you're in Karend, and you've also got Wintertod for the Tome of Fire. And don't forget, it gives you a lot of really good beginning game supplies for just about every single skill. And if you don't like Fossil Island crabs, you can just go to Sand Crabs in Karend. These will be exclusive to anyone that picks this area, so competition might be even a little bit easier for those locations. Konar Slayer and the Catacombs of Karend. You know you gotta get your Skotizo kills, but if you're not doing Skotizo, you got Hydra and Sarachnis for any of the other endgame Slayer gear upgrades. Unlocking the Arceus spellbook will actually help with a lot of different grinds. It's not just a utility spellbook like the Lunar spellbook. And the Farming Guild. If you don't want to do the Tithe Farm route, the Farming Guild will probably get you to 99 if you just farm inside of there. And of course, the cream of the crop, you've got the Chambers of Xerix. You know for a fact you need to pick up Rigor, the T-Bow, the Ancestral Gear. Almost any drop from Chambers of Xerix is going to be beneficial for you for endgame content. And it's such a big area that it almost covers most of the early game and some of the mid game too. You could almost pick Karend and anything else and you'd be perfectly fine. And that's why Karend's going to be the MVP pick this year. I think for my plan, I am probably just going to straight up go Desert, Karend, and then Mortania. Desert for Temperos, Karend for Wintertod, and then Mortania. Once we finally unlock Mortania, we're going to hit every single raid, one after the other for endgame gear, and we're just going to knock it all out. That might be a optimistic plan of mine, but I'm going for it. What do you guys think? Leave your plans down in the comments, and before we go, here's a few combos to consider, just to keep them fresh in your mind. Taranwin and Reminic for an ornate pool in your player-owned house. Does the area have a lot of points to earn in the way you want to earn them? Like I cited with the Wilderness probably getting points from bossing and not a lot from skilling, so keep those in mind. As well as the fact that we have static points this year. So you can actually try to plan out your Dragon Cup course from start to finish on day 1. You're gonna need Asgarnia and Taranwin if you want Amethyst starts for your blowpipe, as well as the desert to be able to make them. You're also gonna need Kandarin if you want spirit trees, and just keep in mind what's your goal, and do you even really wanna do that content? If you hate it normally, you're probably not gonna like it in leagues. It will make it a little bit better and you won't have to suffer anywhere near as long, but you know yourself. If you hate it, don't do it. But most of all, everybody, just have fun when you're playing leagues. And if you got any good suggestions, leave them down in the comments, and I cannot wait to hear them. And I'll see you all later.